Okay, I think we're on the air. So good afternoon, everyone, and good evening to those of you in other time zones. And welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Coordinating Director for Humanities Team. And I'm super excited about today's program. And you could probably hear me and Bruce talking a little bit in the background as we get started. I'm going to be interviewing this very special guest. As you know, it's Bruce Lipton. We're going to be talking about Bruce Lipton's book called The Honeymoon Effect, The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth. This is a fascinating book, and it's very practical. Also, it's not abstract at all. It actually is very tangible. It talks about things that we can do to create heaven on earth. As Bruce just mentioned, if you were here a little earlier, he lives this message. That's what makes him such a powerful author and speaker. Is he lives the message. You can actually hear it in his whenever you spend time with him, as we are here now during the hour. So if you'd like to create heaven on earth in your own life, you are absolutely in the right place. We have over 7,000 people registered for today's call. Thank you so much, everyone, for prioritizing time to be here for this important conversation. This call is interactive with each of you, our listeners, so we want to invite you to put your questions in the question window on Instant Teleseminar. I promise we'll get to at least a few of your questions during the hour. A little about Humanities Team as we get started. In Humanities Team, we see there is only one presence, the divine, and see we are all offspring, embodiments, and expressions of the divine. This means God's love, light, grace, and peace are ours because there is no separation, and we share the same essence. Since our founding in 2003, we've done our level best to live as one with the divine, each other, and our earth home. We don't need to be perfect at this or even excellent. It doesn't have to feel heavy. We must only do our best, and we can have fun with this. As you all know, light and fun is how we work together in Humanities Team. When we talk about oneness with the divine, of course, this is true for all of life, not just humanity. This has repercussions for how we see ourselves, others, and the earth that is our home. Of course, what this means is that everyone and everything are sacred and should be treated as such. It also means we are responsible for the world around us because, in truth, it is part of our authentic self, encompassing the whole of the earth. In addition to the Living in Oneness Summit, the focus of today's call, we convene Global Oneness Day, conscious business programs, service projects globally, prayer and meditation calls, and much more. I mentioned just a moment ago this is a Living in Oneness Summit call. The Living in Oneness Summit is now a year-round program. All programs are free and are recorded, so you can listen in for free for 48 hours following each call. Each week we are interviewing key leaders who can share about living in oneness in our own life, with our partner, as a parent raising children in our home, in the workplace, and as a public service leader. Today we'll talk about living as one in our own life and as a public service leader. And thank you so much again to everybody for being here for this important call, and please get comfortable as we get started. I'd now like to introduce our special guest. Bruce H. Lipton, Ph.D., is an internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit. He is a stem cell biologist, best-selling author, and recipient of the 2009 Goy Peace Award. Bruce has been a guest speaker on hundreds of TV and radio shows, as well as keynote presenter for national and international conferences. Dr. Lipton has taken his award-winning medical school lectures to the public and is a sought-after keynote speaker and workshop presenter. He lectures to conventional and complementary medical professionals and lay audiences about leading-edge science and how it dovetails with mind-body medicine and spiritual principles. He is regarded as one of the leading voices of the new biology. Dr. Lipton's work summarizing his findings are published in his books entitled The Biology of Belief, Spontaneous Evolution, Our Positive Future and a Way to Get There from Here, and The Honeymoon Effect. And welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit. Bruce, it's great to have you with us.
Steve, Nanette, and also Penny out there, I'm so appreciative of this opportunity and very, very appreciative of the fact that there's a wonderful audience out there. And what makes this audience so wonderful is that they represent cultural creatives, people looking for answers outside the conventional box. And it's necessary because the issues that we face in this world are due to the way we've been living and thinking and behaving. And that we're facing such crises in this world that the only way out is to step outside of that box with new insights, new understanding, new beliefs. And that's why I really honor you guys for putting together this program to help us all move a step closer toward that realistic understanding that we were given an opportunity to live heaven on earth.
Yes, we are. Boy, this is going to be such a fantastic conversation because we're going to talk about this book here in just a moment. It's called The Honeymoon Effect, and the subtitle is The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth. And it, as I mentioned, it's not abstract at all. It's very tangible. So it's going to be an incredible conversation. But let me share as we get started. People are already coming in with comments. Again, thank you. We've got a large listenership here that registered for the call. Jan in San Jose, Costa Rica comes in with greetings from Costa Rica, delighted to be one of the 7,000. So I'm sure Jan's speaking for everybody. Bruce, I thought we could start with just what oneness is, because you have, as I mentioned when we were just getting ready to come on to this program, you've been such a great supporter of Global Oneness Day over the years. This whole aspect that there's one presence, it's the divine, and we're all expressions of this oneness. Can you share maybe just a little bit about that and then we'll segue over to your book?
Well, let's start with a very basic principle. I became a scientist because I stepped away from spirituality. I really lost, as a child, belief in spirituality when so many people were offering words of wisdom, and yet their lives never really matched anything that they were talking about. Even as a kid, I could see that. I gravitated to science because science was like, well, there's a truth on this side of the planet, same on the other side of the planet. So science, but interesting in science, you don't include ideas or hypotheses that are not relevant in trying to understand life. And so therefore, in my conventional training in biology, the concept of mind and heart as besides the heart pump, heart as an element of our sensory awareness, mind and heart and spirituality are not conventionally present in any scientific field, mainly because up until very recently there was no way to measure or identify it or include it in any of your understanding. So we dealt in a physical, mechanical world and led ourselves down a path that said ultimately we are biochemical robots and we're controlled by genes. And I was involved in research on stem cells, and that was 48 years ago, I think. Yeah, 47 years ago. I was cloning stem cells, and stem cells are embryonic cells that are in our bodies. Relevance is really critical because every day we lose hundreds of billions of cells just naturally dying. Every 3 days, for example, the entire lining of the digestive tract is replaced. Relevance is very important here, and that is, if you're dying, all these cells are dying, hundreds of billions every day, if you're not replacing them, then so we will die right away too. So stem cells are embryonic cells in your body at this moment that are keeping you alive by replacing those cells every day. So I was working with these multi-potential cells. And if I could just maybe summarize as fast as I can, is I put one stem cell in a dish by itself, and it would divide every 10 hours, and after a week, 50,000 cells in the dish, but most important, all cells were genetically identical. So I take these 50,000 cells, split them up into 3 Petri dishes, and I change the culture medium chemistry just a little bit in each dish. So the culture medium was slightly different in each dish. And in one dish, the cells form muscle, and second dish, the cells form bone, and third dish, the cells form fat cells. But there's a very primary important question associated with this, and is what controls the fate of the cells? We start with the knowing premise that all the cells were genetically identical. So the first thing was the genes did not control the fate of the cells. It was the culture medium, the environment in which the cells were living. And this was really conflicting at the time because I was teaching medical students that genes control life, and then I go in the laboratory and the cells were saying, no, environment controls life, and ultimately turned my whole path of my career and research into a focus on how that environmental signal influences the fate of the cell, the genetics and the behavior. And I started working on the relay of that information. How does environmental signal affect genes? Well, there's a cell membrane, the skin of the cell, and it's the equivalent of a nervous system. It's got receptors like eyes, ears, nose all over the surface, so it reads the environment, and when the environmental signal comes in, then it causes a behavior to occur in the cell. And that's controlled by like a switch, a protein switch in the cell membrane. And that's where I started to recognize is, well, we're teaching genes control life. It's like, no, genes have no control at all. They're absolutely zero. The entire belief that genes turn on and off is so completely false. And yet, all of us, of course, have been programmed with the belief that genes control us. Now it's like, well, the culture medium controls us through these switches on the surface of the cell membrane. And then I say, yeah, but what is culture medium? And now comes the connection to humans. It's like when I take cells out of an organism, I make culture medium based on the chemistry of the blood of that organism. Mouse cells grow in a culture medium based on mouse blood, and human cells grow in a different chemical composition, growth medium based on human blood. So now we're down to the fact that culture medium and blood that's what the whole idea is. So blood is influencing the fate of the cells. And I go, when we see ourselves as single individuals, that's a misperception, because in truth, we're made out of about 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. When I say Bruce, I'm talking about a community of 50 trillion cells. And so underneath my skin are these 50 trillion cells. And so a body is like a skin-covered petri dish. And inside are 50 trillion cells. And there's culture mediums called blood. And the chemical composition of that culture medium controls the genetics and the fate of the cells. And now we're finally closing in, and thank you for your patience, Stephen. We're closing in on, well, if the culture medium composition controls the genetics and the behavior, then what is determining the composition of the blood? And the answer is the brain. The brain releases the chemistry that controls what goes on in the blood. So it's orchestrating the chemical composition. I said, okay, now last and final question. So what chemical should the brain release into the blood? And then comes this answer. It's whatever is in complement to whatever the mind perceives. If the mind perceives a healthy, loving environment, then the chemistry of love is released into the blood. Things like dopamine for pleasure and vasopressin for attractiveness and oxytocin for bonding in a relationship. These are kind of chemicals that are released from a mind perceiving love. And I go, but what happens if that individual opens their eyes and sees something that scares them? I go, oh my God, no. That love chemistry doesn't come out into the blood. Now there's stress hormones and inflammatory agents. Those are released into the blood by the brain. I say, oh my God, then what's happening is this. The fate of the cells is controlled by the composition of the blood. The composition of the blood is directly determined by our consciousness. And as you change consciousness, you change chemistry, and then you change the activity of the cells. And it turns out these signals coming from the mind and then translated by the nervous system are controlling our behavior for inside and outside, and our genetics. And I say, what is the bottom line conclusion of all this? And it comes down to simple. We have been programmed to believe that our lives are controlled by genes, and we don't control them. They control us. Therefore, we are victims of our heredity. You got cancer in your family? I'm sorry. You got, cardiovascular disease? I'm sorry. You got these genes, and there you go. And the new science, which is not called genetics, called epigenetics, and everyone's got to know this because this is the revolution. As much as a revolution from Newtonian physics to quantum physics, genetics to epigenetics is an upheaval of the entire world belief system, because when I say genetic control, old science, genetic control by genes. New science, epigenetic control. I go, yeah, but what does epi mean? Above. Oh, so epigenetic control translates as control above the genes. And now we have found out that our mind is the chemist. And the brain takes pictures that we have in our mind and turns them into chemistry, complementary chemistry that controls our genes and our behavior. So what we imagine in our mind, we manifest in our body, as well as the same signals control our response to the world. So it controls not just the behavior of cells, it controls our behavior. And all of a sudden they say, well, why is that important? It's because we are the ones that can change our minds.
Therefore, that's a perfect lead-in to this, isn't it?
We're not
the
victims,
honeymoon
we're
effect.
masters, Stephen.
Yeah, because this is the headline for this whole conversation around the honeymoon effect, which we're going to talk to. But let me mention, I'm going to pull a couple of quotes out of Bruce's book, The Biology of Belief. You may have heard him share. The book is 10 years old. It's selling just as well today as it was when it first came out. I'm not surprised. This is absolutely a book for the library. But here's a couple of quotes from Bruce early in that book. He says, I didn't believe in God, though I confess that on occasion I entertained the notion of a God who ruled with an extremely honed, perverse sense of humor. I was, after all, a traditional biologist for whom God's existence is an unnecessary question. Life is the consequence of blind chance, the flip of a friendly card, or to be more precise, the random shake of genetic dice. The motto of our profession since the time of Charles Darwin has been, God, we don't need no stinking God. And then a few pages later, Bruce shares what he's come to. He says, well, of course, yes, I am not the first to have said that. It is written in Genesis that we are made in the image of God. Yes, this card-carrying rationalist is now quoting Jesus, Buddha, and Rumi. I have come full circle from a reductionist scientific take on life to a spiritual one. We are made in the image of God, and we need to put spirit back in the equation when we want to improve our physical and our mental health. Wow.
Yes, that's true.
It's true, and it's why you just. It's so. I think what makes your book so powerful, Bruce, and your lectures, is you bring the personal in. You talk about your life story throughout your message, and it makes it relatable. Because I think I know I can totally relate to you as you share, and I suspect that's true for all of the listeners too. We've kind of been there. We're on the same journey here, come up against the same questions. In many cases, started in the same place and ended up in the same place. So it's so powerful. But let me segue into this book, because I know these listeners are here for this incredible message that's shared in Bruce's latest book. It's called The Honeymoon Effect: The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth. And chapters 4 and 5 for me near the end of the book, Bruce, are so powerful because you really get into it. Chapter 5, where you talk about these noble gases, wow. And chapter 4, you really crack the code and lay it all out. But before I get to those chapters, earlier in the book, you get to you start with some really important things that we need to consider. You share that we don't listen to our feelings. We ignore good and bad vibrations. You also share that when people muscle test themselves, lo and behold, most people find out that they don't love themselves. And these are critical things we need to consider before we get to these other things you lay out in the book insofar as creating heaven on earth. Can you talk a little bit about those things?
Okay. I would hope to spend just a minute in here to say something about the nature of spirituality as being a non-spiritual person, then becoming one. Okay, because that becomes really critical, because there's a scientific connection here. So it's not just, I feel that sounds good. No, I wasn't convinced by any devotional belief. I was instantly transformed by just understanding the mechanism. I said, oh my God, if you understand this mechanism, there's no other understanding that will come in here except that we as entities are not even really in these biology bodies that we are in. We're an energy coming in. The body is sort of like a virtual reality machine that is operated by our spiritual nature. I said, how'd you jump to there from genes? And the answer was, remember I said there are switches built into the membrane, and these switches respond to environmental signals, and then these signals control the genetics and the behavior of the cell. What I didn't mention at that moment was there are over 100,000 different receptor devices on the membrane of the cell reading 100,000 aspects of the environment in which we live, and that then adjusts our biology. So you say, well, predict the fate of this biology. And I said, well, like this person, predict this person's fate. I said, I can't really do that for a simple reason. They're not operating off of one receptor. They're operating off of a complete spectrum of the whole environment. So if you want to understand a person's health, you can't just say, oh, they have a bad gene about this. It's like, no, how's their relationship to their family? What's going on in their physical environment? What's in their thoughts or fears? I say every one of these things is being picked up by a cell. So a cell is reading us, more or less, and what we're doing. And what's really the thing that changed my entire life was the fact that no two people are the same. And I can say that biologically by saying take your cells out of your body and put it into somebody else's body, and their immune system will say not self and reject the foreign cells. And I say, well then by definition your cells have identity to them. Otherwise the recipient of those cells wouldn't have any knowledge of the difference between their cells and yours. No, every one of us has an identity built into the cell that makes us unique. And that's when searching that was the part that said, oh my God, instant, like, oh my God, for this reason, is that on the surface of our cells, on most of our body cells, there are a set of receptors, little protein antennas, like receiving a broadcast. And the significance is no two people have the same set of antennas. And the antennas are on the outside of the cell. They're reading an environmental signal. If you take these antennas off, your cells are generic. They're human cells, but there's no identity to them. And if you put somebody else's identity receptors on your cells, then it's not yours anymore. It belongs to them. And I go, wait. The identity of a cell is related to the antennas. And our physical biology will say, oh, yeah, the antennas make the difference between people. They'll focus on the antennas. And I go, no. It's like you're watching a show with an antenna, and I say, is the show in the antenna or is the show coming to the antenna? And the idea is, of course, the program's not in the antenna. It's information picked up from a broadcast in the field. And I go, well, what does that mean? I said, my identity is something picked up from the field and picked up by the cells and placed into the cells. Well, if that's the true story at that moment, then it's like, well, then you're not in the cell. No, you're in the field. I go, what's the relevance? And this is what, I'm sorry I went off on this digression a bit, Stephen, but it really was that moment of like, oh, I can't die. I am not in the cell. I am in the field. and it's sort of like, related to, we can't go to Mars. So I want to know what it's all about. I send up a thing called the Mars rover, a little go-kart with antennas, cameras, and things like that. And I go, what does a Mars rover represent? It's a human. Why? Because it has to read the environment in ways that I can understand it. And so I send it signals. It drives around on Mars. It sends back signals to me what life is like on Mars. I'm the guy at NASA that's driving a vehicle. He's not on Mars, but he's getting a perception of what life is like on Mars, because not only is he sending signals to drive the vehicle, he's receiving signals back from the vehicle about the experience. And I go, a human body is an Earth rover. We have signals, we're being driven around by these signals, and our life experiences go back to source. And then when the rover's batteries are gone, okay, then the rover's dead. But the guy at NASA is still alive. That's the source. And so now we're talking about we are energy beings picked up by like a vibrational frequency broadcasting to that rover on Earth, and our life experiences are through this virtual reality suit. Are turned into vibrations. You see light, yeah, but the brain doesn't see light; it sees vibrations. You taste something wonderful in your mouth. The chemistry of the food didn't go to your brain; the vibration went to your brain. That you hear something, well, of course, that's vibration already. You touch something, that's vibration. If you have an emotional response, the nervous system doesn't have a physical expression of it; it has a vibration of it. Point. Our life experiences are turned into vibrations. And these vibrations are in our body at this moment, and we can experience them there, but they're also sent back to our source. So where we are is like you can feel love, and you can feel hurt, and you can feel all these things. Why? Because you have a body, and it's sending you information back through this suit. And then I say, well, vibrations become very critical for a major reason, and that is vibration is energy, and energy is equal to life. Simple fact. No energy, no life. Lots of energy, lots of life. Point then, energy is a gauge. If you have a human body dashboard, there's only one necessary gauge on your dashboard to drive this human body. It's the energy gauge. I go, what do you mean? I say, well, every organism on this planet communicates via vibration, including us, even though we try to not really go deep into that aspect, and we communicate by language. It's like, no, the primary communication is vibration. Every organism communicates by vibration. I go, what does vibration tell you? And then I can tell you very simply this. when vibrations interact, like ripples on a pond, you throw two rocks in the pond, the ripples converge, they interact with each other. And I say, well, when energy interacts, there's two extreme outcomes. Two energy signals can come together, and if they're in harmony or they're resonant, they amplify each other. So two vibrational energies interact. It's called an interference. It's actually called a constructive interference because the interaction promotes a higher vibration, a more powerful harmony. And then you're going, oh, that sounds physics and stuff. I go, no, okay, how about this? It's called good vibes. You've experienced it. You've been someplace and all of a sudden you have more energy than you had before you walked in the door or something, and that's called good vibes. And I say, and the other extreme is two energies, vibrations come together and they can cancel each other out and go flat. That's a cancellation. It's an interference, but it's called destructive interference. It takes away the energy. And I go, yeah, and that we also know as bad vibes. If you've ever felt you're in a place where you didn't feel like whole or complete, you felt endangered to some degree, you felt vulnerable, you felt your energy start to disappear a little bit, you're lower in energy, your strength is going away. Bad vibes. So I say, why is this relevant? Because every organism on this planet is programmed very simply to go toward high vibes. Why? Higher vibes, higher energy. Higher energy, more life. So we are programmed to go toward where the vibes go. And therefore, when we read the world, you can read it with your eyes and ears and listen and then use your mind and do interpretation. Or pretend you don't have eyes and ears and pretend you're an amoeba. And I say, how do you know what's going on? I say, I got vibration receptors. And if I move this way, the vibration gets better. And if I move this way, I lose the vibration. All of a sudden it's like, oh, then you didn't have to teach an amoeba which way to go. All I had to do is find out, go toward where the vibes are higher. But, those are the good vibes, and avoid the bad vibes because they take away your life. I go, every human is endowed with this mechanism, as every other organism on the planet is. But we've generally been programmed not to pay attention to those vibes, which we call feelings. I go, feelings, that is the vibration. You're reading, you're giving an identity to the vibration, good feelings and bad feelings, or whatever. I go, yeah, you're reading vibes. And I go, what's important about it? Words, they're meaningless for this reason. You can get some guy, an actor, to make the words look like they're really good, or they can act in a different way, make the words sound really bad. And so the whole idea is this: the words are changeable, and a person could perform words. I could take away your money by giving you a story, then I'm helping you, and that that happens a lot. And I go, relevance. If you listen to the words, you're not paying attention to the vibration. I go, what's relevant? If you pay attention to the vibration, then you'll know if the words are in harmony or they're not in harmony. Because if you get near somebody and they're good vibes and their words come out like these are good words, then I say, well, okay, the words match the vibe, I'm going with it. But in contrast, if you get to somebody who's really trying to rip you off, well, the first thing, they're going to try and give you all the good words, right? They're not going to tell you, I hate you, give me your money. They're going to, well, some do, but most of them will say, oh, listen, invest in this thing. It's really great, knowing they're going to rip you off. I say, well, if you listen to the words alone, it all sounds good. But I said, but if you would have first listened to the vibration, you would have felt that you would have lost energy by being around this person because there's disharmony in that. And so all of a sudden I say, well, words are good. But the most important meanings in your life come from the vibrations. And these vibrations are mainly, we refer to it as our heart. Our heart is responding to the vibrations. Our brain is responding to the rational thinking. And then I say, this just helps us as to say, why should I trust my vibration over my rational thinking? I'll give an example because most everybody on the line has taken a math class, and there was one of those classes a long time ago where you get a big giant equation, and the process is they call it reduce the equation to, make it smaller and smaller and smaller. And it takes like a whole page. You start at the top with a big equation, and you do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get to the bottom with a small little equation. And then what's the point? I say, if you made one small error in the calculation on the entire page, you made one small error, the answer at the bottom is wrong. Period. And I say, why is that relevant? Because I say, if you rationally try to understand and create a life just through rational thinking alone, this is good, except that one rational thought that happens to be a misinterpretation and not actually true, one of those little thoughts, the whole equation's gone. I say, what about the heart? Heart doesn't do the steps. The heart just reads the vibration at the end. The fact is, it just reads the vibration. As simple as that. Is this vibration good or bad? Bottom line. That's what it basically comes down to. And so it's not, there's a whole range of good and bad. I mean, there's a bad that scares you enough to run away, and there's a bad that's annoying. But what's the point? We have been programmed to not pay attention to the feelings, giving them a more second-rate meaning in our lives, but to listen to the people, which is all of a sudden it says, yeah, how many times have you bought a bill of goods because you listened and then the person ripped you off? I said, yeah, that's what you get for listening but not feeling. So vibrations are critical. And meeting up with people that are part of a community, vibrations are really the most critical part, because when you start moving into a community with the same vibration, guess what? The amplifying effect of more people coming in with that vibration into a community raises the volume of that vibration, and the significance is others who are not necessarily in that vibration can be entrained by the volume of a vibration to participate. And so all of a sudden it says, well, you want to change the world? You don't have to change everybody in the world. Just get enough seeds of groups of people who have this different vibration. And around them, other people will just entrain. That's an entrainment where two things start to come together and share the same vibration. Through entrainment, the world will change. So I made a long-winded answer to that, Stephen, but the whole idea.
That was beautiful. And, you by the way, there are questions, many questions pouring in, so I'm going to just in a second point right into the part of your book where you lay out this honeymoon effect, this science for creating heaven on earth. But before I do that, I just wanted to share, I loved the lead-in here. Earlier you were talking about epigenetics, that this is controlled by consciousness, and then you were using this metaphor of a TV and a TV signal, which, of course, you talk about in your book also. And your realization, your epiphany, and you could feel the excitement in your words as you were writing your book that, oh, my God, I'm the TV set. I'm an eternal being. I have infinite potential. You can feel.
That truly was a shock, Stephen, because, as I said, my vision didn't have anything like that included in the storyline. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, my God, it's real. Instant.
Oh my God! You made it so tangible, and that's what, again, I love about your books is they're steeped in this deep science. And as I mentioned when I introduced Bruce, he is this isn't some new age person. Bruce is taught medical school at universities, so and then at Stanford was involved in the stem cell research. I mean, Bruce is deep in the science and still to this day teaches science and lay people. So it's wonderful because the deep spirituality, which is your message, which has got this foundation, which is in science, it's just it's so powerful. Let me go ahead and point right into your book where you talk about this honeymoon effect, creating science on earth, or the science of heaven on earth, because I know people that are here, and we've got a large listenership, want to understand this. Let me say, by the way, there's so much covered in this book, there's no way that Bruce can get to anywhere near even half of the important messages in the book. So I urge you to buy the book. It's called The Honeymoon Effect. You can buy it at Amazon. It's inexpensive. It's one for the library. But Bruce, I think when you distill it all down in the book, you say we've got to get back to this feeling of being in love, which is why you called the book, I guess, The Honeymoon Effect. It's the thing that steers this whole ship of creating heaven on earth. And you mentioned that you and your wife do this together. You can and you can hear the energy of love in your voice, the energy of bliss. So you're living it. So can you talk a little bit about this? How we get back to the energy of love and really carry that around with us all day long.
Yeah, the first thing that's very important to understand is that cells have two fundamental behaviors that can't occur at the same time. One is called growth, and one is called protection. Growth is organism goes out into the world, open arm, take things in, assimilate things, bring it in, and grow. Protection is to move away from the stimulus and wall yourself off and protect yourself as you're moving away from the stimulus. So what really is interesting about this is when you're in love, you're in growth, and when you're in stress, you're in protection. And when you're in protection, you shut off growth because growth can only occur when you're open and protection is closed. So what we have to look at the world, number one, is this. We have been programmed to live in fear. There's not enough. As a matter of fact, the principle of the Darwinian theory of evolution, which is incorrect actually, is a struggle for existence. It's a competition for fitness in the struggle for existence. And that is our fundamental belief of the world that has been programmed all around the planet. So what does it mean? Everybody understands, whether they know the biology directly or just the consequence of the behavior, that it's a dog-eat-dog, rat race world, and we're all in fear because we don't know how long we're going to survive, et cetera, like that. And then all of a sudden I say, well, wait a minute, this is a belief system. We have fear because we're being programmed with this fear, and then all of a sudden I have to now jump track and add this to our conversation, and that is the following, and that is there's a movie called The Matrix, and most people have seen it, and it's a movie about science fiction, about programming. I'll let you know that The Matrix is actually more of a documentary than a science fiction story, because, in fact, we've all been programmed. It's a natural way of getting a child's consciousness off the ground. A child can't be conscious until they're programs. And we've been programmed how to deal with life, how to be a member of a family and a community. Through the programming that occurs in the first 7 years, which is actually nothing more than downloading our observations of other people. How they behave then becomes the way we behave. And that's the first programming goes in for 7 years. And then what happens after that is consciousness is created, and then we have a conscious mind, which is a creative mind that has wishes and desires. And we have the first and foremost mind, the subconscious mind, which is a database of programs. Just simply what it is. These are downloaded behaviors. I observe my parents, my family, my community, and I take their behavior and make it mine. Okay, so we have two minds. Conscious creative, that's the one connected to you as a personal, unique identity, a spirit. And the subconscious mind is like a machine with like a jukebox, an old-fashioned jukebox. Got all these programs in there. You push the button and play the program. It's really great because once you learn how to do something like walking, the subconscious mind allows you to walk for the rest of your life without ever having to relearn it again. And so the subconscious mind plays a very valuable role in helping us with behaviors that we can use to survive. So bottom line, we are programmed primarily with other people's beliefs in the first 7 years, and most of that programming is negative and redundant, according to psychologists, 70% or more, disempowering and self-sabotaging. And I go, okay, what's the interesting aspect about that? You say, well, okay, I'm not going to use my programs. I'm going to create my life from my conscious mind, the one with wishes and desires. I won't defer to the program. And I go, well, unfortunately, 95% of our day, we are running off of the programs in the subconscious mind, because it turns out when the conscious mind is thinking, behavior is defaulted to the subconscious program. And I go, yeah, but then when the conscious mind is thinking, we're playing the subconscious programs. Are they our wishes, our desires, or they're other people's behaviors? We downloaded from other people. So 95% of the day, we're not moving in the direction of our conscious wishes and desires, what we want out of life. 95% of the day, we're moving to the program. And then I go, well, what's the relevance about that? I said, well, when the program is playing it, why are we playing it 95% of the day? And the answer is simple. When the conscious mind is thinking, by definition, it's not paying attention. If I said to you right now, I say, well, what are you doing on Saturday at 4 p.m.? If you actually entertain the answer to that question, what does it mean? It means that you're not paying attention because you're in your head trying to figure out where you're going to be on Saturday. And I say, well, significance of that is that when you're not paying attention, we default to the subconscious. We play the programs. They came from other people. But we don't see the program because the conscious mind was in the database looking at that Rolodex trying to figure out what was going on Saturday. The behavior got shifted to the default. So I'm playing the behavioral programs that I got from other people, and I'm the one that doesn't see it. And so I say, what do psychologists tell us about the programming that we get in the first 7 years of life? And the answer is 70% or more of that programming is disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting. Then I say, what's the relevance of this bottom line conclusion we're at here? 95% of the day you're playing programs that are restricting your abilities and what you want out of life. You're not conscious of them. You're the one that's not conscious of them. So quickly what I use in my lecture, and everybody laughs, and I like it because it means everybody understands. I say, go back in your history. You probably had a time when you were very close to a friend, knew your friend's behavior very, very well, and you happen to know your friend's parent. And one day you see that your friend has the same behavior as their parent, so you volunteer, very excitedly, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. And then you back away from Bill. Bill goes totally ballistic. How can you compare me to my dad? And most people laugh because they have personal experience with this. I go, well, this is the most profound story that I can tell you right now on this line, Stephen, and that's simply this, is that Bill, 95% of the day is in thinking, which means he's playing his subconscious programs. From where did he get them? From his father and his mother and his family. What's the point? When he's playing the programs, is he aware that he's playing the program? No. Everybody else is, because they can observe him, but he's playing the program because his conscious mind's busy in thought, and because it's busy in thought, he doesn't see those programs 95% of the day. Occasionally, we do get a glimpse, and it's almost embarrassing. You say, oh, my God, it's just behaving like my mother, or it's just behaving like my father, and it's almost like embarrassing to see, I was doing that. It's like, you're doing it 95% of the day. And then the bottom line comes down simply this, and it says, well, then the programs shape our lives. And I go, absolutely. And they don't just shape your behavior, they shape your biology. A child adopted into a family that has cancer running in it, it's adopted early into the family. The adopted child will get the same family cancer with the same probability as any of the other siblings, except the child came from totally different genetics. What was the point? The cancer, turns out, less than 10% of cancer is heredity. The rest of it is all due to how we live and respond to the world around us when we're not in harmony, when we're in anger, when we're in frustration. This kind of chemistry that comes out of a brain is a chemistry via epigenetics, control above the genes, that can take a healthy gene and turn it into a cancer gene just the way we're behaving. So basically it says, wait a minute. Am I living my life with my program, or am I living my life with my wishes and desires? Answer simple. Everyday life, 95% subconscious program, because that's how much the conscious mind is busy in thought. That leaves 5% of your life are you moving toward wishes and desires. 95% you're moving toward wherever the program set. And so the significance of that it becomes very fundamental, because it says then the life you're experiencing may not be the one that you really wish and desire. And as a result, you look at life like Bill and you go, geez, this life is not supporting me. I'm a victim. It's not working. Look, I'm unhealthy. I'm not happy. And I'm trying to be. I got all the great wishes and desires. And I go, yeah, but like Bill, that's when you're operating in that mode, that's 5% of the time. And the other 95%, you're in thought. Your behavior is coming out. It's not yours. It's from other people. It's sabotaging you most of the time. And you're the one that doesn't see it. And I say, what's the relevance of that? I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I have great wishes and great desires, and it's not manifesting, so nature is against me. And I go, oh, my God, that's the big problem. It's invisible. We are causing the problems. We are changing our genetics. We are the one that is controlling our health and controlling our relationship, but not with conscious awareness. And I say, well, we've been programmed. I go, yeah, sort of like the Matrix. Yeah, you've been programmed first 7 years, but in the Matrix they have a blue pill and a red pill. Very exciting. Blue pill, you take that one. You go back into the program, life is just the way it was, and it has always been. But if you take the red pill, you get out of the program. And here's the exciting part. It didn't really explain, so what is the real consequence of getting out of the program? And the answer is most everybody on this line has experienced that already. I say the consequence is this. We now know the one time that almost everybody gets out of the program and starts living directly from that conscious mind's wishes and desires is the day they fall in love with somebody. The day they fall in love, they become mindful, meaning they stay in their conscious mind. Instead of 5%, 90% or more. You're operating from what? Consciousness, wishes, desires, aspirations. And you and this partner that you've now met with are what? Both operating in conscious mind. You're both creating wishes and desires. I go, hey, yesterday you didn't know each other. And right up until yesterday, I say, how's your life going? And they go, nah, it wasn't that great, I'm not happy, I'm bored, whatever, I'm blah, blah, blah. And then I say, You met this person yesterday, and guess what today is? It's heaven on earth. So beautiful. You can't wait to get up in the morning and get back into that relationship and share that love and go out and beam and just live in that juiciness of life. It's like, oh my God, you're creating this most wonderful experience. Yes, in that honeymoon, it is heaven on earth. It is exactly what you wanted, and it's here, and it's so beautiful. And I say, how'd you get there? And the answer was, it's the one time in your life that you stopped playing the programs, and you started living just from consciousness, which is wishes and desires, and not defaulting to programs. I say, and what happens when you live from wishes and desires? You manifest wishes and desires. How wonderful is that? And then I say, yeah, but guess what? A lot of us have been on the honeymoon, may have lasted 3 or 4 days, may have lasted a week, may have lasted a month, maybe even 2 months. Wow, that's really great. But inevitably that rush, that whole thing sort of gets tempered. And then it's like, well, it's almost like regular life, but you got a friend, a partner, and this is really nice. But it's not that juicy heaven on earth that happened in the first beginning. So here's the answer of how and why. The answer is this. You didn't have love. You were living in a subconscious program, and life wasn't really good. You experience love, you shift to the conscious, you start living in wishes and desires, so you're not using subconscious programs now. But inevitably, life still goes on. You're going to have to deal with your job, fixing the car, doing the chores, whatever the heck that is. I go, why is that relevant? Because the moment you start thinking about what you're going to do, guess what? You've defaulted to the subconscious mind. And why is that relevant? Because those programs in there don't support the honeymoon you've been on at all. And I say, okay, scenario, conclusion, when the honeymoon really ends, you've been in this love heaven every day, blah, 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 everything's great. And then your partner comes up and asks you a simple question. But you happen to be thinking about your job, let's say, at this moment. You turn around and you respond to your partner in a really blah, blah, blah. And they look at you. And they're shocked because they've just been on this honeymoon experience all the way up to this moment. Now they look at you and you said this, and the inevitable response that most people come out with is something close to, who are you? They see this response show up, and they're shocked, like, this behavior, where the hell does that behavior come from? And then, so let's say I'm the guy and my partner's looking at me and say, where the hell does that behavior come from? And I'm thinking, what is she talking about? The reason is, I'm Bill. I'm playing my dad's behavior right now, which is abusive in this situation. Why am I playing it? Oh, because I'm thinking, and therefore I defaulted to this behavior. But because I'm thinking, I'm the one that didn't see it. And she accuses me of not being me, and I am so lost. Like, how could she say that? I'm always me. I've always been this wonderful, loving person. What the heck is she talking about? I'm the one that didn't see I was playing my dad's behavior. And I say, what's the relevance of this? And that is, as more and more thought comes in the relationship, there's more and more default. And the more default, the more the programs come up from the subconscious. And then instead of living in the honeymoon, which is two conscious minds with wishes and desires, that's their creation, we now have 4 minds in the relationship, and 2 of them are really antagonistic. And their behaviors are lousy. If you would have played one of those behaviors on your first date, you may not have had a second date. That's how bad some of them are. And I say, what's the whole relevance of all this? And the answer was, we have an opportunity to live heaven on earth, and many people have experienced this. A little sidebar right here, very important. Does the honeymoon experience have to involve another person? The answer is absolutely not. I did that because that's how most people get there. But you could have a honeymoon experience if you're a gardener and you get out and you put your hands in the dirt and you're planting things and you're so overjoyed with your planting. Guess what? You're conscious of everything in that moment. You're not thinking in your head about things. You're enjoying the moment. Or you're an artist, or you're doing something that you love to do. It means that you're keeping your mind conscious because that's the thing you want. And as long as you keep it conscious, you're manifesting that wonderful chemical cocktail in your body, a chemical cocktail that comes from our brain and love. And that chemical cocktail promotes growth. And that's why simply, hey, look at this. Nobody's going to argue with this. When people are in love, observers of them say, look how they glow. Look how healthy they are. You see, that's a side effect of love. That's the chemistry of a brain saying, God bless this place, is so beautiful. I just love it. And guess what? All that chemistry is coming out, and 50 trillion cells in your body are going, yeah, this is great. and when you let the subconscious mind go back, then the signals from the subconscious mind are, well, this is not good enough. That won't work. I'm not deserving of this. Whatever it is, those are the cells that the signals that the cells see are not now the conscious mind. They are seeing the subconscious programs which terrorize cells, most of the ones we got. And that's why health crisis is so big on this planet. It's not because of genetics. Genetics is responsible for less than 1% of the illness on this planet. The rest is, lifestyle, behavior, consciousness, or the lack of it thereof, and the result of behaving and having our biology controlled by the chemistry, which is the result of our thinking process about those behaviors. Wow, I went on and on, Stephen.
Yeah, no, this was beautiful because you really stepped into it, starting with the whole aspect of what, this astounding conclusion that 95% of our day we're defaulting to our subconscious mind. So we're restricting our abilities, and we're not even conscious of it. So I love that it started with the problem, and the problem is huge. And then you stepped into, okay, now what do we do about this? One of the there are so many questions here. So to listeners, I apologize we can't get to many. But Bruce, I thought one of them, several have asked this question in slightly different ways. We've got about 4 minutes before I need to go into programs. I know this hour's gone fast, programs that are upcoming. But the question is from Rowan in London, and he says, is it truly possible to live in a constant state of heaven? And if so, how? And I know in 3 or 4 minutes to try and answer that is not going to be easy, Bruce. But in chapter 4, you get down to, in chapter 4 of your book, you lay out the actual process for doing this.
Yeah, let's see if I can do the 3-minute version. Here goes.
Yes.
Start. Number 1 is that the life we're experiencing is a direct consequence of the consciousness or subconscious programming behind it, okay? And you say, what's my programming? I got it between last trimester of pregnancy, first 7 years. I don't remember when I was 1 year old what the heck the program was or what happened in utero, but I was programmed. And I say, okay, most important fact. If you want to know what your programs are, look at your life for a very simple reason. 95% of our life is coming from the program. So by definition, your life is a printout of your subconscious programs. And I go, well, if it is, then look at it in this way and say, all the things you like that come to you and come easily to you and you like them, they're there not by accident, but because you have programs to encourage and support them. In contrast, anything that you're trying to acquire, get to, reach, or whatever, working hard on, putting effort into, sweating over, stressing over, why are you working so hard to get to that destination that you seem is so elusive? And the answer is simply this. It also reflects a fact of a program, but a negative program, that those things that you're working for, your subconscious doesn't support that. So what are you trying to do? Overcome the program by putting more effort into it. And the fact is, well, if we understand the fact that we can rewrite the program, then the simple conclusion of all of this conversation comes down to this. You look at your life, you see where the trouble spots. Is it relationship? You always having the same problem, recurring relationship problem, recurring work problem? Recurring is the key word because it means a program that keeps replaying itself. And so basically it says, if you know what the programs are, then you know the opposite of what you're experiencing that you want. And then you take that as a belief statement. If I'm not feeling love because I find out I'm not loving myself because of the critical programming my parents gave me, what if I put in a program I love myself, which you can do? I said, what's the consequence of that when it becomes a habit in your subconscious mind? Then your behavior will also reflect love in everything you do. Because you're loving yourself, you're going to love everything you do. And that is what's going to be evident to other people. Remember, everyone can see Bill's behavior except for Bill. But if you could write your program so that the subconscious programs match the wishes and desires that you really want, and the places where you're finding right now, I'm struggling, and you say, that's the point of the program, that destination not covered, and I say, rewrite that program, which you can do. I say, what's the significance? And the answer is, the most amazing answer is this. If you created the honeymoon heaven on earth experience with the wishes and desires of the conscious mind, And now we take those same wishes and desires and put them into the subconscious program. What would it mean? It says, whether you're being conscious or whether you're moving unconsciously through the world, behaviors in each of those situations will be behaviors that will ensure your destination that you wanted. It will lead you there whether you're thinking about it or not. And that's the fun part, because you can leave it to the subconscious, which has been controlling you anyway. You say, this is what I'm looking for, and the subconscious will work in every way possible to manifest that experience, because that's the job of the system. The mind's job is to create coherence between your beliefs and your reality. If you have a belief of being frail and vulnerable, then the mind's job is to make you that way, and you will experience it, and then you'll say, that's just what I thought. I was weak and vulnerable. See? Or the mind can change around and say, no, you are powerful and strong. And then people go, oh, that's a new age he's talking. I go, okay, let's put in science and close with that part. There's a placebo effect, which is a belief a medication that I'm going to take is going to heal me because it's the newest and greatest thing ever. And I take the medication, I get healed, and find out it's a sugar pill. Placebo effect, meaning it was my positive belief about the pill that resulted in the positive outcome. I go, yeah, that's really true. And what we haven't talked about, because it's more of a problem, is that a negative belief is equally powerful but works in the opposite direction. A positive belief can heal me with a sugar pill. A negative belief can kill me. And this becomes important. You can tell this person's a poison. If they truly believe that and they take it, they can die. And there wasn't a poison, just as much as the sugar pill wasn't the real healing thing. So belief, positive or negative, equally powerful, operating in different directions. Placebo effect is the scientific name for the positive belief and the positive outcome. And nocebo is the scientific name for the consequence of a negative thought. And I say, so what's the difference between living heaven on earth or living the struggle that we live in? And the answer is, what is the belief behind it? Because the mind, through the chemistry of translating that belief, will manifest behavior and biology to complement the belief.
Okay, and I'm talking, of course, to Bruce Lipton, and we're talking about his book, The Honeymoon Effect, The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth. I invite you to purchase this book. It's $14.95. You can buy it anywhere, including at Amazon. And there is so much practical, tangible discussion for how one creates heaven on earth on a daily basis in your own life. And Bruce talks about it very personally with his wife, who he met also. And they share they didn't grow up in homes that were easy. There were lots of challenges they had to overcome. So I invite people to buy that book if this conversation resonates. I thought I'd also bring in a couple of quotes here that just support everything you're saying, Bruce. It is done unto you as you believe, of course, comes right out of Scripture, attributed to Jesus. And then if you think it is true, you're right, and from Henry Ford. Right? So this is really ancient wisdom, also new thought, and Bruce writes just so powerfully about this. So, Bruce, I want to thank you. I'm going to come back
Stephen,
and thank you some more.
Can I get a second to add one last one of those quotes?
Yes.
And if you understand what we just talked about, then you understand the supposed last words of Jesus was, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. And I say, forgive Bill. He does not know what he does because it's a subconscious program. And if we look at our lives as interactions of subconscious programs and not the conscious spiritual aspect, then we have a distortion. And we have to give people an understanding. It's like, okay, they're negative. Are they negative because their spirit is bad, or are they negative because their programming is bad? And once you understand it's the programming, there's a different way of dealing with everyone on this planet.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, am I there?
Am I there?
Okay. Sorry, I dropped something. Yes, no, so true. We're a spiritual movement, Bruce. So thank you for bringing that in. Absolutely, love, is what oneness is. And just self-love, love for people, love for the divine. So such an important point. Let me just share, because we're talking about living in oneness, that I want to invite people to our Humanities Team Community Circle. It was recently created. It's for people that want this deeper, richer experience of living in oneness with the divine and each other. All of our audio programs from this year, last year, and previous years are made available for free in the community circle. Also, we've got a private Facebook page where we support each other, talk about our own lives where we're living in oneness. And right now we're offering as a bonus this hour-long video that we created just a few weeks ago when we gave the Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith and his wife Ricky Byers Beckwith our Spiritual Leadership Award. It's a beautiful hour-long video. If you go to humanitiesteam.org and up at the top you'll see Join Us. If you click on that, you can read about Community Circle. It's only $10 a month. I also want to invite you to look at some of the exciting programs that are coming up the day after tomorrow on Thursday. At 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, I'll be interviewing Mirabai Starr. We'll be talking about the interspiritual journey and her book called God of Love, a guide to the heart of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. You don't want to miss this call. It's, again, Thursday the 25th, or rather this Thursday the 18th. And then a week from Thursday, I'll be interviewing Ken Gordon. He's the spiritual leader for the Centers for Spiritual Living, what used to be called the Science of Mind Churches. It's going to be a fascinating discussion where we talk about building spiritual community. These Centers for Spiritual Living have over 400 centers worldwide in over 30 countries, so it's going to be a really special meeting. If you go to the livinginone.com site, you can learn about and register for these upcoming calls. All of the programs are free, and we make available replays for free for 48 hours as well. Neil Donald Walsh, Llewellyn Vaughn Lee, Patricia Cota-Robles, Matt Kahn, Barbara Marks Hubbard are only some of the upcoming calls that will be a part of this Living in Oneness Summit. Bruce, I want to come back and thank you again so much for being here for this program. It's just been a wisdom-filled program, and I just love your heart energy. I love the way you express this wisdom. So amazing. We've got also lots of people that are writing in and thanking us for this call. Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, and Penny Heipel, I also want to thank them. They're my partners, and there are others as well that help create these programs that are running the back end of this call. Finally, I want to thank each of you, the listeners who are here. We've got a great audience today. Thank you so much for making it a priority to be here for this hour with us today. In closing, I want to invite everyone to really live as one. This is what ultimate reality is. This is how we'll create this shift on the earth, is just by embodying oneness. It doesn't have to be serious. It can be fun. When we live this way, we support our own health and well-being. We create it for our families, and we create it in the communities and in the world around us. I think Bruce really brought that point home during this hour-long program. So let's all live as one. It's what ultimate reality is. Bruce, as we close, what site can people go to just follow your programs?
Oh, it's so simple, brucelipton.com. And,
Bruce Lipton.
Yeah, there's a lot of information downloadable from that site right there, things that we've talked about.
Awesome. So check that out, brucelipton.com. And again, Bruce, thank you so much. I look forward to being in touch with you and staying in touch. And to all of the listeners, again, thanks so much for being here. Have a great week, and we'll be back here next week. And we'll talk soon, everybody.
Thank you so much, Stephen, Nanette, Penny, and all the members behind this wonderful humanities team. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bruce, and thank you for all of what you're doing in the world. My God, you are a very special messenger. Okay, we'll talk soon, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.